The illusion of freedom will continue as long as it's profitable to continue the illusion. At the point where the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain, they will just take down the scenery, they will pull back the curtains, they will remove the tables and chairs out of the way, and you will see the brick wall at the back of the theater. And this week's opening quote comes from Frank Zappa. So I first want to start off by giving a huge shout out as to the inspiration for doing this show. And it's by listening to Max Igan's weekly radio show called Surviving the Matrix. I want to look at some of the topics that we have not been talking about recently. And the first one is terrorism. And well, I guess the war on terrorism is now officially over. For the first time in 20 years. The perpetual wars have seemed to stop. No one seems to be talking about them right now. And I guess we now have peace on earth. The second topic we haven't been talking very much about recently is climate change. That no longer seems to be on the agenda. And no matter what side of the fence you're on as far as climate change goes, well, we sure aren't talking about it very much, are we? So, well done, Greta. You've had your 15 minutes and you've served your purpose to those who were so blatantly manipulating you. Another topic that no one seems to be talking about anymore is Jeffrey Epstein and his connections to such major parasites as Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and many, many other celebrities, politicians, and other powerful people. I guess that must have been fake news. And the whole pedo island thing, just fake news, folks. The next one, the whole transgender agenda that was being promoted throughout certain schools, telling children that were far too young to understand about any of this stuff, that they either don't have to identify as a boy or a girl if they didn't want to. Well, they're no longer in school anymore, so that doesn't seem to be a thing. And there are also the many cases of where men or even high school boys who quote-unquote identify as girls were participating in leagues that were set up for girls. Just so you know, a friend of mine who I went to high school with, who is a woman, she got kicked out of her roller derby league because she dared to have the backbone to speak up against a man who identified as a woman and who wanted to play this very physical sport in an all-women's league. She stood up and she paid the price by getting kicked out of that league. Another issue we're not talking about as of late is the mass extinction of species that has been happening over these past few decades. And I'm not talking about just the larger animals, but I'm talking about the smaller ones, such as the bees. There's a great article that I read, and it was called "Young People Can't Remember How Much More Wildlife There Used to Be." Now, during the summertime, when you're driving around, I want I want to, if we're actually allowed to drive by this summer, who knows with what they're changing by the hour, it seems. Well, if you have a chance to do it this summer, take a look at your windshield, and I want you to see how many bug splats you have. And I want you to think about the number of bug splats that you used to have when you were younger, back in, let's say, the 80s and the 90s, if you were driving around with your parents at the time. And they were much, much more. We've lost like over 70%, if not higher, of all the insects. Another thing that we're certainly not talking about is a lot of right-wing and left-wing politics. You don't hear a lot of people right now saying, because of what's happening in the world, oh, this is the fault of the right-wingers, this is the fault of the people on the left. Oh, it's the fault of the Muslims or the Christians or the men who wear the small hats. I don't want to say which religion that is. It's the fault of the overprivileged white men. And the biggest one of all, it's the Russians' fault. Nope. That's all gone away. Because we are now all in this together. All the major countries who either have left or right-wing governments, even countries that are kingdoms, are all currently following the same script. I guess the bigger question is, who is writing their script? I guess this just further proves, once and for all, that the leaders are simply the mouthpieces that go on national television and speak on behalf of the elites. And even the word elite is a complete inversion, like much of our current language. These people are parasites who are part of this giant kakistocracy. And if you don't know what the word kakistocracy means, just go to Google and type in kakistocracy with a K. And kaka in many languages actually means crap or poop. Okay? So basically what a kakistocracy is when you are governed by the worst possible people. The shit people. That's what we have. We have a kakistocracy. And, as it goes to this lockdown, I mean, all countries are blatantly right now just reading from the same script. And like I said, who is writing the script? The psychopaths have truly played their hand this time, exposing themselves like never before. And those who chose not to believe that a few could control the many are finally realizing that they do. I thought that people on this planet had finally turned the corner by figuring out that things like 9/11 was an absolute lie, and the subsequent measures taken against our freedoms. These wars. I felt people were starting to see through the deception for why we were there. However, you will still find people out there that will still fight to the death to defend the official story, and no matter what you say to them, it doesn't matter. This is Stockholm Syndrome on steroids. And the same thing applies to what's going on right now with this massive lockdown. You can present them with evidence showing that, we're not being told the real story behind everything that's happening here right now, and it doesn't matter. They don't care. And I fell for the official story too of what happened on September 11th, 2001. I was teaching English in South Korea at the time when it happened, and I remember I spent most of the night watching CNN. But years later, 6-7 years later, I finally learned about things such as false flags and their importance, and they can be seen throughout history, and the many other historical false flags that have been admitted to, such as the Reichstag fire, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which got America into Vietnam. And I finally began to realize that they all played a huge part in swaying the public into complying with the pre-planned agenda. So, what is the agenda? Simply put, more for them and less for you. But what happens when these people already have all the money in the world? What else could there be? What else is left for these people? These psychopaths, these parasites. Power, control, dominance over everyone else.
The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress?
I was.
Look again.
So I just want to talk about one final thing about this current lockdown and about what's happening in the world right now. If you have the opportunity, if you have 2.5 hours, I strongly suggest you go watch the David Icke interview that he did with London Real a couple of days ago. And as soon as they posted that up on YouTube, immediately YouTube took it down and it was banned. So when they ban something, you need to go watch it. And I'll add a link to that down below. Now, whatever you think about David Icke, whether you like some of his stuff and dislike some of his stuff, or whether you just completely despise him, doesn't matter. Just put your opinions of David Icke aside. Go watch this. Take 2.5 hours. For those 2.5 hours, he is on fire. He is spot on. And one amazing thing about David Icke is he can connect dots with so many different things that you don't even realize would be connected. And he's able to do that. And he is able, in this interview, he is connecting those dots. He is talking about those who are involved with what's going on in this and where this is going to go over the next couple months or even the next couple of years. And he's very good at predicting the future. So if you can, please go watch this interview. It is absolutely fantastic. Okay, thank you so much.
What you reap is what you sow.